But most importantly, something just happened that a lot of us have felt has been happening for a long time in our city. And I feel that, and a number of us expressed shock that could possibly happen. And as I often share with my children, now young adults, and in my classes and with young people about politics, is that laws are often a function of somebody having transgressed the public trust, so now we need a law. That's why we have so many laws. So it's very clear that what just transpired, and we don't even know if that's all of it yet, colleagues. That's the other piece. We don't know if it's all of it quite yet. We always have prided ourselves in Anaheim as leading, innovating, and building on a public trust that right now is in crisis. But I do want to share with you, colleagues, some data. And whether it's 12 months or 6 months, I just want to remind you the essence of this law is that if someone has a financial interest in our city and they gave you money to be elected, in the public side, that's suspect. So it allows 12 months. It allows two things, which is why, for me, it's 12 months. One, the Levine Act says preceding 12 months already. So 12 months is not radical. It says preceding 12 months, you cannot have received a contribution. I'm just saying forward 2 months, 12 months, because perhaps someone didn't contribute to them, but now they voted for it. So guess what? Harry Sadu was going to ask for $1 million if he got this deal done. So the seduction is so great during election periods that I think it imperative for me that it's 12 months, but I'm open to more conversation about that, Councilman Fessel. Is 6 months enough? I don't know. The other part about the second piece of 12 months is it allows the council, frankly, to gel. It allows us to gel because we know that our votes are based on an ideological perspective, philosophical, pragmatic, economics, that we think it's the best thing. It allows us to gel, or future councils to gel as a body, rather than what happened to us, frankly. The moment Mayor Sadu was elected, he called for a special meeting within 2 days of being elected, put a $1.7 million contract out to build an emergency homeless shelter. Who got the $700,000 contract to build or renovate that building? The president of the board of the Chamber of Commerce. Within 2 days. So that's why and so that created for me a huge sense of I don't want to go so far as say mistrust, because we were still trying to gel, but it was hard. It was really hard. So that's the interest here, is to assure the public that these fiscal interests do not play a role. City Clerk, if you wouldn't mind sharing the slides that says, is money an issue in our city's politics? And this is just data that I downloaded from our city clerk's office, and I'll go through some of this data. So this is just campaign contributions from 2015 to 2022. Again, going off the campaign forms that have been submitted and just simply adding the contribution amount by some of these interests. This is just a limited amount of interest. It's not all of them. The Disney Corporation has contributed $5.6 million over the past 6-7 years towards elections in Anaheim. Angels Baseball, $21,150. I'll add the caveat that this only includes electronic submissions. It doesn't include paper submissions that are submitted quite often, so they're not uploaded electronically quite yet. It also doesn't add any debt relief that Angels Baseball gave towards other campaigns. The Chamber of Commerce has given over $101,000 in campaign contributions direct to the Chamber of Commerce. The hotel industry, over $1 million. The manufacturing home industry or Association Advocacy Group, $23,000 over this period. More over the last 3 years once Rancho La Paz started coming to our council asking for rent stabilization. Apartment Association started giving $44,000 over the past couple of years, again, because we started talking about rent stabilization in Anaheim. Anaheim Fire Association has given over $234,000 in campaign contributions. Our Anaheim Police Association has given over $778,000 to elect candidates in Anaheim. So while we cannot recuse ourselves from contracts, as was suggested, the people should at least know when we are voting on items that we've received campaign contributions for. And I am actually big as a labor person. but people should know. And if we can't recuse ourselves, they should at least know. If we can go to the next slide. And so just some quick votes taken. Again, nothing here other than how the public sees this. These contributions come in, and then we take these huge votes. We agree 90% of the time on many things that are pro forma on our consent calendar, but it's the big items that cost our city a lot of money that really people pay attention. 2019, we reinstate the Angels lease after they opted out. We now know Mayor Sadoo's involvement in that work. And we know that they've been contributing to members of our council. At the time that we were considering this item, they were giving donations right after the election and right after we made these decisions. We kept voting, as the council majority kept voting to keep the deal in the dark and not allow public input. And I have something else I'll show in a bit, or maybe in the next meeting, of how many times we tried to agendize this and it did not occur. The Chamber of Commerce got a no-bid contract for $400,000. Anaheim First contract got approved the first night it was introduced for $250,000, a creation of the Chamber of Commerce. Voting against relief for seniors at Rancho La Paz, the extreme rent hikes. The industry MHED vehemently opposed that, and they were giving money to council members at the time. Was your vote pure? Maybe, but we don't know because this cloud exists. If that happens. If they felt very strongly about rent stabilization, they could do what the rest of us do. They could give a small donation and go knock on doors with us. But to give money the way that they have been, again, creates very suspect votes. Not that they were, but they create that cloud. And then lastly, voting against protections for renters. Same thing. The Apartment Association played a heavy role in some of that work. Next slide, please, City Clerk. So candidate fundraising, and I'm not sure why this isn't showing up fully. There we go. So I included myself here, colleagues. I actually was surprised at this number myself. But I'll just, at the top, Mayor Sadoo, since the year he announced he was running 2017, has raised almost $1 million. And here's what I'll point out. Folks, please, it's really hard to stay focused. Folks keep blurting out. 2019 is not an election year. He raised $95,800 during a non-election year. His election is not up again until 2022. During COVID, the year of COVID, he raised $106,000. Councilman Fesso raised $87,000. During the year of COVID, $55,000, Councilman Diaz. Councilman Valencia, $119,000. Gloria Maya, you're blank until 2021. I'm not sure why that's 21 because I think you were appointed 21, so maybe it's 6,900 is the right year. Myself, my election year, $80,000. The previous year, $7,000. So I would also have to look at myself in recusing if there were indeed donors that were somehow that I was voting on. But I know the mayor, but look at the very end, the last column, the amount of money that maybe we don't want to have to raise that kind of money, but it is an arms race at this point. And that's what creates the cloud that then begins to reign when an FBI investigation comes in. And this is how it often works, colleagues. I know that you have experienced this pressure that we now understand under the FBI investigation of when entities choose to collaborate together and call themselves a cabal, a family, and they start to talk about you as if they control your votes. And they felt they controlled your votes because of the money they were giving you. Maybe not true, we won't know. I'm hoping everyone may get exonerated, but it again creates that cloud, and it creates the pressure on us that when we go out to get support, that no one expects anything in return whatsoever. I've also heard, as I mentioned at our last meeting from folks that we contract with, that some of them say, I give a lot of money to some of these folks, but I don't call them to give them money. They call me to say, hey, did you want to talk about, or their campaign fundraisers will call and say, hey, it looks like you have some business of interest in the city. You could meet the council member at their fundraising event in 2 weeks at Morton Steakhouse. That's how it plays out, colleagues. And you may not be aware of that. I would be surprised if you don't, but that is how things play out. So it becomes this undue or implied expectation of giving campaign donations if they want to see their contracts in the light of day. We know it was explicitly happening in the Harry Sadoo situation, and we want to make sure that folks understand it's not happening overall. Next slide, and I have just a couple slides, and then I'll finish up. And campaign debt. And I note this, Councilman Fesso, you said, I pay mine off right away. This is what some folks do. They'll loan themselves money to their campaign to get their campaigns going, but it is a loan. And so when there are fundraisers that are had after the election, again, it's a check being made to a campaign committee, and that campaign committee makes a check to the personal bank account of the candidate that just got elected. So that, again, leaves itself open, very much so, to the idea if I don't show up to pay off this debt, I may not be looked on favorably for my contract or for my issue or for my development. And I'll again note, Harry Sadu came in with $166,000 worth of debt, colleagues. And he also came in with over $100,000 in debt from an assembly race that he failed in 2016. And we heard tonight from a Senate seat from 2009. And he was having campaign fundraisers to pay out that debt with the same donors that funded many of us on this dais, many of you, not me, many of you. So that's where I want to make sure to disentangle that in the interest of the public and the work that we do up here, because it's sacred. It's sacred. Next slide. And this is the last slide. Just an example of how this plays out. And I hate to think that, in fact, I don't feel the mayor is the only one. Maybe to the extent that he went, but the system has set us up to fall to this without us even realizing it, right? So again, it may not be intentional, but it's happening. Debt relief. He came in, as I said, with $166,000 in debt upon his election. November 7th through December 31, but this happened after the election, he had already received $32,700 to pay off his debt. He was getting personal checks into his bank account to pay off his debt from donors who have business in the city. And then he paid off $65,000 the first 6 months of 2019, the first 6 months of his term. That's when we were negotiating the Angels deal. And by the way, the Angels deal is not only about the Angels, it's all the developers that were gonna make money developing that land with Artie Moreno. So there's a lot of other interests involved there. And then $19,000 to finish off 2019. And then the year of COVID, the first 6 months, half of that we know was COVID, he finished off his debt by getting $80,000 more in debt relief. So he ended up raising $195,000 to pay off debt, not just that he had the city, but with state level raises. And I note on the right there that he got donations, right at the time that he was agendizing us to do things about the Angels deal, reinstate their deal, their lease, from the executives of Angels Baseball. And SOAR. And some of us at this dais have sat on that SOAR PAC and advisory group. That's what I'm trying to disentangle, colleagues. So that's why this is urgent. So that's it for this. So that's why this is urgent. But I want to respect if you all feel that it's important that Councilman Diaz is here. If you want to chew on this a little bit. The 12 months is there to allow us to gel together and to allow a distancing from these contributions. That's why it's important. That's why it's important to have the 12 months, because we already have the previous 12 months as outlined in the Levine Act. The other ideas I'm open to is Councilman Valencia mentioned, and City Clerk we've discussed how she's already with the lobbyist registry, which by the way, the FBI referred to our lobbyist registry forms. They referred to those forms, thanks to the City Clerk's ability to put them accessible out there, to note how Jeff Flint was sidestepping our law. And how by looking at who's on that list of lobbyist registry, the FBI knew also who to look at, thanks to our city clerks and with our law that we passed in 2017 that the city clerk's office put up quickly. So I know the city clerk can put up links to these PACs, these major PACs, so that, because one concern I've heard is, well, how will we know? Because we're not supposed to know. And that's true, but that doesn't mean the information is not out there for us to get. So the city clerk's office can easily put up links of the SOAR PAC, and council colleagues, it's upon us to look at that, click the link and see if any of the business before us contributed to our support, and then we disclose that we have to recuse ourselves. Or if it's a government agency or union, we then have to at least disclose. So that's what it does. It basically says to big money, if you give me big money, I won't be able to vote on your project. So if it's about ideology, then let's let the ideology sit. But let it be ideology, not because the public might think, $100,000 just got invested in a candidate by a particular special interest of the city. That's what this does, colleagues. I hope that we can get ourselves to support this together to rebuild that trust. The trust right now is in crisis.